Hey, welcome back to the NOTCAST. That is, if you've seen previous episodes. If this is your first one, hope you like it. If you're a returning viewer, hope you still like it. If you've come here because of the Roger Waters review and you want to tell me I'm an awful human being, please don't bother. The world is a very big place. There's plenty of space for lots and lots of opinions. Today is Thursday, the 12th of October, 2023. This is number 324. And I wasn't expecting to do this twice in a week, but I am talking about a re-recording of a popular beat combo album. Obviously on Tuesday I talked about the Roger Waters re-recording, reimagined, revitalized version of Dark Side of the Moon Redux, which it's fair to say I am not a fan of. And today I am talking about the Flaming Lips and, of course, their 2009 album Embryonic, but their second album of 2009, which is a reimagined, re-recorded version of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. So I'm talking about two different re-recordings of Dark Side of the Moon, one after the other. Wasn't quite what I was expecting to do this week, but I listened to the Roger Waters version of Dark Side of the Moon, and as you've probably worked out, I'm not a fan. Now, a couple of you have said some rude things in the comments. Firstly, where are your manners, guys? Okay, play the ball, not the man, okay? And secondly, there was a comment about how I don't understand the album at all and I don't like Pink Floyd, which is pretty odd, really, considering I've seen Pink Floyd live twice. I've seen David Gilmour live 7 times, Roger Waters live 5 times, Nick Mason live 4 times, and I own over 300 Pink Floyd albums and records and singles and DVDs and things, if you include the solo releases by David Gilmour, Nick Mason, Roger Waters, Syd Barrett and Rick Wright, of which I have everything apart from the 1984 album Identity, because I've never liked it and I've never seen a copy. So I never thought about paying huge prices for it on Discogs. It's a big world. We have different opinions about a great many things. Huge chunks of the world really, really like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I absolutely don't. I generally tend to focus on the music that I love, that means something to me, and that speaks to me. And I'm trying to be enthusiastic and positive about things. Occasionally, of course, an artist that I like does something I'm not a fan of, and I'm going to say, not a fan of that. Honesty is the best policy. That's how it works. Today, I'm going to focus on a band that I do love, and I'm going to talk very nicely about them. And that band is, as I've previously mentioned, Oklahoma's finest export, the Flaming Lips. And by the way, my ex-wife is from Oklahoma. We have split up a long time ago, and so therefore I have now promoted the Flaming Lips to my favourite export from Oklahoma, and one that has remained, I think, more enjoyable for me to listen to over the years. So, released on 13th of October 2009, Embryonic was the Flaming Lips. Oddly enough, it's their biggest selling album in America. It got to number 8 and it sold 88,000 copies, of which 88,000 copies in the first week. It sold 32,000 in the UK, and it sold 103,000 in the US by 2011, which, given how weird this LP is actually a really big surprise. I wasn't expecting it to sell anywhere near so many copies. It got to number 8 in the American charts, number 43 in the UK charts. So in the UK, I think the Flaming Lips were a band that people love them as long as they did the pop stuff. The true history of the band, which is actually very similar to Pink Floyd, the move through various styles and lineups as various key people became part of the creative process or ceased being part of it, reflects very similarly Pink Floyd's journey as they changed their sound and attitude over time. But there's an indefinable quality to the music of the Flaming Lips, which I still listen to and go, whatever it is, it sounds like the Flaming Lips, which reminds me of what Peter Buck said once when they were recording some REM stuff. And he went, do we sound too much like REM? Well, if you're going to sound like anybody, you might as well sound like yourselves, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. You shouldn't be second guessing it, to quote an REM song, and trying to sound like something that you're not. I think the audience can kind of smell and hear if there's anything inauthentic in a band's work. And this sounds a little bit weird, but like when I've heard some bands and they say, "Oh, I'm going back to my roots. I'm going to go back to do the thing that I truly, truly love," and you kind of think, I'm not sure that's the case, guys. You know, if you're going back to what you said that you're going to be and that you always love and always true to be, it's kind of like you can kind of go, okay, because audiences can smell insincerity 1,000 miles off. They really can. I mean, unless Bon Jovi genuinely does love every city he plays in, and every crowd is the best crowd he's ever played to, and every crowd he plays to is better than the one the night before, even a teeny weeny faction. And you kind of go, yeah, okay, man. So, 12th studio LP released by Flaming Lips, which, as I've said, Oklahoma's best export. You can also tell I'm getting over this cold and flu thing, which everybody's got. Sorry about that. I am. I'm going to pause it and have a drink. So, 13th of October, 2009. The Flaming Lips release, I think, their 12th studio LP. It's their first double album. And as I've said, it's their most successful US release. It's a double album, I think, for a number of reasons. The first one is mid-late 2000s was a very, very strange time for the music industry, because everybody could copy something and stick it on an MP3 and stick it on a file sharing site with names like brand new studio records.net or whatever it's called. The idea of selling albums became a little bit archaic. If you're a music fan, you know, and sometimes you're stretched for a budget, you then started to look into a record as a music delivery system. Now, if you've seen the film Insider by Michael Mann, brilliant film, by the way, but it talks about cigarettes and the tobacco industry, and it says the tobacco industry, cigarettes are a nicotine delivery system, and CDs and vinyl were a music delivery system. And then if you start to think about not what it is, but what it does is what matters to most people. Most people, it's fair to say, aren't like me, thank God. Most people don't have a room full of old CDs from when they were younger and had hair on the top of their head and not the bottom. Most people have got like a Spotify account and a car, and I've got neither, which makes me unusual, but life would be boring if we were all the same. The other thing is, when people were buying CDs, when they were buying tapes, when they're buying vinyl, what they're buying is not the artifact. They're not buying this mass-produced work of art. The vast majority of people are looking at it and going, I want to hear the next 12 songs by Liam Gallagher. I'm going to go and buy the CD when I go down to my Tesco's mega market on Friday night. If they're going to buy it at all, they're probably going to go to Spotify, type Liam Gallagher, press the button and listen to the album whilst they're around the house. And they might listen to it once, and that'll be that. That'll be the lifespan of the album. It's got your attention for 40 minutes and it's disappeared. And as soon as it's finished, you don't even have to take it out of the tray, put it onto a shelf, put it away. Spotify's already on to the next thing that it thinks that you like. It's going to look at your listening history and your favorited artists, and it's going to pick out another band of 4 or 5 relatively well-off white guys playing guitars that sound slightly sad, and suddenly you're going to be listening to Foals or Fleet Foxes or The National or somebody. And that's not a criticism of any of those bands, by the way. It's just that's how Spotify works. So the concept of the album was starting to get untangled, and you could almost say, well, what is an album anyway? Which is a dilemma which the Flaming Lips approached with vigour in 2011 and 2012. You know, they looked at this and went, this is a music delivery system. So although there's the physical artifact, people will always buy the physical artifact, because if nothing else, how the hell is YouTube going to keep all that content going if it doesn't have vinyl nerds like me in it? The second thing it's going to have is they're going to be looking at it and going, well, for most people, buying a CD, what's the point? You know, I could buy, well, given today's inflation rates, if you're in 2024, 2023, you could maybe buy a pint for a tenner, maybe. I remember when I first paid £5 for a pint, I couldn't believe it. You know, here we are now, where you're going £7.90. Oh, that's not so bad. It's like, really? My first pint, by the way, was £1.44. I bet I am old. really old. Or as I like to think of it, experienced. So Flaming Lips Embryonic, even though it was the most successful album, I have a theory about music. And the theory is that there are two types of artists. There's the artists, and if somebody likes that artist, they love that artist, they are in up to their neck for the rest of their life. They will buy everything. They will buy the special fur pack 2 CD plus DVD expanded edition and hold a YouTube about it, and they'll never take it to the charity shops. Now, artists which are in those kind of situations, like, for example, if you look in charity shops, thrift stores, how often do you see Metallica? Very rarely. How often do you see Guns N' Roses? Not that often. How often do you see Adele and how often, and like, you know, some of those bands, and you kind of think, those CDs, they're everywhere, you know, falling over a pile of Paul Young's No Parlay albums, for example, possibly the most traded in LP of all time that you might get one whole penny for if you're really, really lucky, you know. Or maybe if you go to a charity shop, and inevitably when you go to any charity shop, you're probably going to see a copy of Coldplay's A Rush of Blood to the Head. You're almost definitely going to see an album by, let's think now, Star Sailor. I think Kula Shaker's K has turned up quite a lot recently. You know, these are REM's Monster. These are not difficult records to get. People buy them because they think they like them. And then they get to a certain age and they go, that's not me anymore. I'm not going to listen to that. Take it to the charity shop or throw it in the bin or sell it at a car boot sale. Other bands, you never see their stuff. I very rarely see Led Zeppelin in charity shops. Very rarely see Flaming Lips. Very rarely see Metallica. Never see Metallica, actually. And if you do, their stuff is there for like a fraction of a second and then it disappears forever. And sometimes you've just got to take it while you can get it. Never see Motorhead either, actually, which is odd. Although, actually never see Iron Maiden. Metal just seems to be one of those genres where if somebody likes music, they are in forever. Sorry about that. As you can tell, I'm still getting over this cold and flu. So even though Embryonic is their biggest selling LP, or more correctly, their most successful LP in terms of commercial sales, with the US chart position of number 8 and selling 103,000 in the US by 2011, 103,000 is what, like Stryper probably would have sold in 1984. So there's a different scale that we're working at now. 100,000 album sales in the big scheme of things. It's more than Paul McCartney sells now, by the way, in the US, but relatively speaking, it's not very much. You know, there are some of the records, some of the Flaming Lips albums, as I get further into the discography, I may be going, this one sold 4,000, you know, which is not that much money and not that many copies. As a double album, the other thing that also happened is the single became effectively redundant. The idea of CD singles, DVD singles, 7-inch, 12-inch singles. There was a real transition around 2006 to about 2011 where singles ceased to exist as physical objects. They turned from mass-produced items that you could buy in Virgin, because Virgin ceased existing in 2007, and HMV, they turned into, instead of being 3-song CD singles for £1.99, they became, you bought the song from iTunes and the song was the only thing you bought. The concept of the B-side became almost irrelevant because there was nothing to put a B-side onto. There were no CD singles. There were some 7-inch singles, not many. There were no kind of 12 inches or anything like that. There was no mass formatting. And if you wanted to hear an album, or more correctly, if you wanted to hear a song, just go to YouTube. It's on YouTube. You don't have to buy the single. And then the single and the YouTube link and the video, they're all adverts for the tour. The album's an advert for the tour. It used to be the tour was the advert for the album. Now the album is the advert for the tour. And if you're going to do an in-store tour to sell more copies of the albums, what you're really selling is the live experience with a CD attached as a necessary extra. Which means that luckily, if you want to, you can see almost any act play a place called Prism in Kingston, which is a tiny nightclub which isn't particularly good. And at least once a week, Banquet Records will be selling, you know, tickets for some artists playing there in order to sell more copies to get to number 1 in the charts in the UK, which you don't have to sell that many copies to get to, by the way. Sorry, just interrupted that for a big coughing fit. So Embryonic, as a double album, has a dilemma, or perhaps the best word is quandary, which is the band had more material than they could stick onto a single album. And instead of putting the weird and unusual songs on the B-sides of singles or on a CD single of, I don't know, My Dog Has Laser Eyes, which isn't, by the way, the name of a Flaming Lips track, instead of putting, extra tracks on the CDs and DVD singles of those, they just put them on the album, which means Embryonic is at 18 minutes and it's about 79 minutes long. It is the longest Flaming Lips record. And it is also the weirdest, because also thinking about CD bloat from the 90s, when suddenly artists had 76 minutes to put on a record or a CD, and then you ended up with albums like Tori Amos's Boys for Pele, which I always bring up as an example of CD bloat, is where you've got more songs on the album than you need. And having more songs on the album, it's kind of like watching the long extended version, not a director's cut, by the way, but the extended TV version of The Last Emperor, which I saw recently. And all the extra material adds nothing to the film. It's just padding, and it's shots of a kid walking down a corridor. You took all the shots of the kid walking out of the corridor out of the movie, you'd probably bring it back down to its original length as opposed to 3 hours, 4 hours. Right, sorry about that. I had to cough again. So, Embryonic. It was a throw everything at the kitchen wall and hope that it sticks kind of LP. It's 18 songs. It was released on a double LP. It was released in the UK on a single CD here in a stickered sleeve. And if you bought it from the band's website, there was also a special deluxe edition fur pack, which has 2 CDs in high-res audio, a DVD in high-res stereo, and a nice bit of fur. If you ever feel that you need to stroke an album, there you are. Flaming Lips Embryo. But listen very carefully, it might purr like a tribble. Is it purring? Brrr. Oh no, you saw me do that. I'd make a terrible ventriloquist. Okay, so there you go, Embryonic. Now, what we did have with Embryonic, and this is where I'm going to bring the LP out, I think, to play, is that it was a move away from the more focused song-based approach from the band. So the early years of the group, doing stuff like I Know Wasting Pigs is Radical and In a Priest-Driven Ambulance, Hit to Death in the Future Head, those type of records, they had a very different sound to the sound that lots of people are used to. And that's the sound that the band came back to, at least in part, on Embryonic. Now, Steve Drozd, every band needs to have a guy like Steve Drozd, a guy that can play absolutely any instrument you throw at him and be amazing at it. Steve Drozd is the guy in the Flaming Lips, and I must admit, maybe I'm not a Flaming Lips fan, maybe I'm a Steve Drozd fan, and if I'm mispronouncing your name, I'm very, very sorry, mister. I don't think I've ever said that word live in my life. But it was a move from the more focused song-based approach of Yoshimi and At War with the Mystics to an everything and the kitchen sink kind of approach. So all types of songs were included on the album, all types of songs that they were writing. So sometimes they write these light, airy, psychedelic space epics, sometimes these deep, grungy, dirty, kind of like, not psychedelic, but late 60s garage rock type stuff that you might be expecting, like, I don't know, the Groundhogs or something. And then sometimes they'd write these wonderful, beautiful, perfect songs and then turn them into guitar rock noise and experimental keyboard noodling. It really is a kind of a sort of a stylistic greatest hits of everything the band have ever done. Some of it good, some of it not so good. But to almost say, like, in the way that, like, kind of when Metallica did certain things around about the time of Death Magnetic, there was an element of, because remember, Kill 'Em All by Metallica saw bugger all at the time it came out. There's an element of, the Flaming Lips going, remember us? We do the weird stuff as well as the nice stuff. And the problem with that sometimes, and this is going to sound bitchy, but it isn't, is that if it's all heavy, if it's all shade, there's no light. And that means that is it getting heavy? Is it as heavy as it could be? Is it all darkness? And sorry. That's not necessarily going to make for a particularly well-balanced LP. So you can make a fantastic album if you're a fan of either version of the Flaming Lips. If you like the weird, dark, surly, psychedelic stuff that sounds like your head falling in on a bad trip, then there's plenty of that on Embryonic. If you like the poppy stuff that's more kind of songwriter based, and more not enjoyable, but more relaxed and more airy, and more kind of just sitting there having a lovely trip as the sun goes down. If you want that, plenty of that on this album too, by the way, absolutely loads of it. But they're both on the same LP. And as Wayne Coyne said at the time, it solved the perpetual dilemma of what to include by including everything. And there are 18 songs on the album, but there are also, by the way, now when I was saying that there are no B-sides, there were 4 iTunes only exclusive tracks. Those 4 tracks were called UFOs Over Baghdad, What Does It Mean, Just Above Love, and Anything You Say Now, I Believe You, which is an extra 20 minutes of music. Now, with my format snob head on, for the deluxe edition of Embryonic, which is here in a lovely fur pack, listen to it trill like a tribble, I think that what you could do, and what you should have done, is to put that extra 4 tracks on the CD, because the album is split into 2 audio CDs on the deluxe edition there, and then also there's a DVD edition of it. I think this is the DVD. No, disc 1, disc 2, and there's the DVD, which is high resolution audio in stereo, 24-bit, not even 5.1 actually. The first Flaming Lips album in a while that didn't get a 5.1 mix. But you would have thought, well, maybe you could have put the extra 20 minutes on there, but they chose not to do it. Instead, what you get, and I'm not going to take these panels off, is a very unusual bit of artwork where you kind of look at it and go, well, clearly it's skin and stuff, but you're looking at it and going, what kind of body is this? It doesn't make sense. You know, I think I can see a belly button there. I can see some folds. I'm not quite sure what this is. Is it somebody's back? I don't know. I'm not sure. Is it somebody that's had bariatric surgery? No idea. I'd be sat there like Scooby-Doo going, And I was hoping for those bonus tracks to be on the DVD, but instead you get the super high-res stereo version of it. And the album, 18 songs, very quickly go through them. Convinced of the hex. The Sparrow looks up at the machine. Nobody writes song titles like the Flaming Lips, do they? I once decided I was going to write a Flaming Lips style song using the most ridiculous title I could ever think of. And I came up with Looking Back Upon My Funeral from the Afterlife Off Above in the Cemetery. You know, the idea that as a ghost you're watching your own funeral. And I thought, well, firstly, that's totally Flaming Lips. And secondly, why haven't they done it already? And, you know, if you want to buy that song title off me, that'll be 50 quid and a pack of prawn cocktail crisps, if that's okay. And then we also have on the album, by the way, after those 2 tracks, we have Evil, an instrumental called Aquarius Sabotage, See the Leaves, If, Gemini Syringes, Your Bats, Powerless. These are not fun song titles at all, are they? And then The Ego's Last Stand. I Can Be a Frog, which is probably the nearest thing to a single that you can get. That has guest vocals from Karen O. Sagittarius, Silver Announcement. Worm Mountain, which features MGMT. The Impulse, Silver Trembling Hands, which is probably my favourite song on the album, actually. Virgo's Self-Esteem Broadcast, and Watching the Planets, which again features Karen O on vocals. There's a warning on this, which is that the DVD the double album was made in the spirit of our experimentation, and this DVD is an extension of this way of working. The high resolution format has known to occasionally be incompatible with DVD players, which is pretty surprising actually, considering what DVD players and Blu-ray players are like. I'm finding that some of the very early 20th Century Fox titles, Die Hard, The Fly, for example, it's really difficult to access the special features because of the way that the menus are designed. They don't only work on some versions of the DVD or Blu-ray player. That's not interesting, I just thought I'd tell you. And we have a number of shots inside the booklet of the band playing there. Cliff, Michael, and there's Steve Drozd. There's Wayne and Steve. There's Michael Ivins, the band's longtime bass player, who I think recently retired from the Flaming Lips, and a shot of the band in recording there. And the way that's kind of presented, that photo, it kind of makes you realise that Wayne and Steve see themselves as the Flaming Lips, and Cliff and I think it's Kevin are not perhaps quite so central and integral. Now, I love this picture. This picture should be the album cover, and I do a sneaky little thing with my copies of CDs, which is you can change the cover if you change where the booklet is. So I've made that my cover of Embryonic. I think that's better than the cover, because it gives you an idea of what the cover of the album is like. Now, the cover to the actual Embryonic release, you can argue, is a little strange. It's and let me just get the vinyl up here for you. It's what looks like lasers flying out of the eyes of a woman who's having her face kind of forced open and a bunch of hair. I don't quite know what that means. This seems to indicate to me, it reflects, firstly, those classic albums in your dad's collection in the 70s, where you listen to it and you kind of go, this was bought when Dad was taking drugs in the 70s, or he thought he was taking drugs, and he thought it was mind expanding, but really he was listening to Emerson, Lake and Palmer Zoo's songs about sad whales. This is the kind of cover that perhaps I think you should have had for Embryonic, as opposed to the one that they did choose. There is also, by the way, the inner sleeves, which reflect the imagery that's on the album in there. Now, the inner sleeves, some people put the vinyl inside the inner sleeves. If the inner sleeve comes with its own separate dust jacket, I don't, because I think if the band are putting a different inner sleeve in, then that's probably a stylistic decision by the band to do it that particular way. But Embryonic is, in my opinion, it's kind of a bad trip. That's not always a bad thing, but it's inspired by, certainly I think, some of the best double albums of all time. And by the way, that doesn't mean Song Tales from a Topographic Ocean. That means it's a sprawling free-for-all, similar broadly to the White Album, Physical Graffiti, Sandinista. Yeah, that's not great. Bitches Brew, where you've got all of it all in one place at one time doing its work. It's the kind of almost not really an album. It's the sign of almost like a mixtape, or perhaps a director's cut style version of an album. Not necessarily the TV version, but the expanded director's cut, where you throw all of the stuff in. And you think about artists going back and remixing or expanding previously existing works, Apocalypse Now, Aliens, those type of things. Zack Snyder's Justice League. Sorry, Zack. You kind of end up going, there's a risk of not having any quality control, but at the same point, you've got everything all in one place. And sometimes having the complete full widescreen 233.1 vision, where you can see everything as it wraps around, is absolutely compelling and absolutely brilliant. Because what you're getting is, you're not getting anything that's sanitized for your protection. You're getting the full experience there of whatever it is that the band intended to achieve. And the album has a number of lyrical conceptions and obsessions that it visits and revisits repeatedly. There's themes of being born, there's themes of isolation, madness, reality, the gap that exists between those places. So the idea of going, well, how real is reality, and how would you experience that, and how would you think about that in the context of everything else? And you end up with this weird, strange album that touches upon a piece for assaulted lunatics. Of course, then covering Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon is the natural next step to take after that, because all the themes that are reflected in Dark Side of the Moon, mortality, death, madness, reality, commerce, capitalism, are all kind of covered inside Dark Side of the Moon as well. And those are the themes which sit inside the lyrical conceptions and obsessions of Embryonic. So let's go to Dark Side of the Moon. Let's move away from the triple pack version of Embryonic and the vinyl, and let's go to Dark Side of the Moon, which, again, an album I've not given any one specific episode to, and now I've got two in 1 week. Aren't you lucky? Let's hope that my dog doesn't announce it's re-recording a remixed version of Dark Side of the Moon, because then I'm going to have to do that as well. So, Dark Side of the Moon by the Flaming Lips, Star Def and the White Dwarfs, with Henry Rollins and Pictures doing Dark Side of the Moon, was released on iTunes on the 22nd of December 2009, and then it was released to non-iTunes retailers a week later. And this is I think a very good album. If you're going to go for one artist kind of remixing, revisiting Dark Side of the Moon, then the Flaming Lips version is the one to go for. I absolutely love it to bits. I love the cover. I love the sound and textures. I should point out, by the way, Flaming Lips have been performing songs from Pink Floyd throughout all of their career. I think they were doing, what was it? I think they were doing something like Power Torch or Flaming by Syd Barrett in the mid-90s. They were playing Breathe at Glastonbury in 2003. So them doing a whole Pink Floyd album is not really a surprise. And kind of looking at the live show that they've got there, the UFOs at the Zoo lineup which they've got, you end up kind of going, I totally see this. And the artwork, I think, is perhaps a little brighter, a little warmer than the artwork that we've got on the other record. It kind of reflects more that sense of adventure and boldly going into the future there, with the cover of a child pointing to the stars and a multicoloured prism of light coming out of their eyes. Sorry, I had to pick you up and take you for a walk because I'd remembered that I hadn't got a record out. This was the first of a number of records which the Flaming Lips released, which started their process of collaboration with other artists. So in future, they would play or do joint records with Star Death and the White Dwarfs, Prefuse 23, Neon Indian, Yoko Ono, and a number of other acts as well. But that is for, although as Maz Katana says, that's a tale for another time, that's actually for the next episode. Dark Side of the Moon got a physical release. It was released as a Record Store Day LP on green vinyl. Here it is, the green vinyl edition. Absolutely lovely. Woohoo! Look at that, look at those colours. Isn't that nice? I like those. Very nice. Oh, I've never done that before. Oh, that is exciting. Look at me, I almost smiled. So that is Dark Side of the Moon, the green vinyl version that was released for Record Store Day in 2010. On the 17th of April 2010, 5,000 copies in a weird and unusual colour there. I'm going to put this up here because I can. And then you do that, you put those together and you kind of go, wow, that looks kind of exciting. That's probably the most exciting visual and thumbnail that you will ever see from me, actually, come to think of it. No, the 5,000 copies Record Store Day version of it on vinyl is a lovely shade of green, which is not a phrase I thought I'd ever say, but there we are. And I really love the re-recording. I think it takes the right approach to the source material. It's respectful, but it's not slavish, and it understands and kind of reflects upon the meaning of the song and the album and the ideas that sit within it. I really like their version of Dark Side of the Moon. It's better than Roger Waters'. There is a risk, and you can kind of see this in the cover art for the Dark Side of the Moon album. There is a risk of the Flaming Lips becoming better known for being a spectacle or for being entertainers rather than being a band. And we have to be really careful to make sure that we can disentangle the wrapping from the gift. Because whilst the band take their live show very seriously, and it's very impressive, as this photo kind of indicates here, we have a huge amount of balloons, weird lasers, spaceships, and God knows what else. I must say, those guys really know how to put on a show. You also have to know that that has to be seen as an addendum or an expansion of the band and not the band itself. And occasionally you have acts where the showmanship kind of outweighs and outbalances the actual quality of the work that's being done. And you can kind of go, are you compensating for a lack of songs or musical ability by amping up the showmanship? Which sometimes makes me wonder is, if you actually took the plot from a James Bond film, for example, and you took out all the car chases and the explosions and the guns and the shooting, how long would a James Bond film actually last? How long would Too Fast, Too Furious actually be if you just concentrated on the plot? Well, we all know the answer is not very long. But that sounds uncharacteristically bitchy, and I try to be positive. So there is an element of this where you kind of go, is this a novelty? Is it a gimmick? It doesn't feel like it at all, actually. Flaming Lips doing Dark Side of the Moon feels like not a homage or a tribute, but it feels more like they've gone to the lengths of making a Flaming Lips album where they just didn't happen to write the songs. And it's a very interesting way to see and hear about how acts approach songwriting. Because there's one part of you that thinks that all you've got to do with songwriting is pick up the acoustic guitar and go, money, it's a gas. Or if you're Roger Waters these days, sound like you're just about to die and go, money, it's a gas. Or you could take another point of view and go, well, actually, the thing that the band brings to it isn't the song, but it's the arrangement and the production and the sound and the texture and the feel and the style. And you kind of go, well, that's really interesting, actually. Because Dark Side of the Moon by the Flaming Lips feels like a really good Flaming Lips album that just happened to be written by somebody else. And you can kind of then go, well, Hurt by Johnny Cash, one of the best cover versions of all time. It was a Johnny Cash song that happened to be written by Nine Inch Nails. Always on My Mind, one of the best Pet Shop Boys songs, happened to have been written by somebody else that wasn't Pet Shop Boys. Go West, same type of thing. A good cover version can really show the strengths of an artist when chosen wisely. There's another couple of releases which we've got. Once we go past this effectively is where the band started to see the end of their Warner Brothers deal. So the release of Dark Side of the Moon, in my opinion, kind of covers the same kind of ground as U2's Europa. It's a surprise release which puts the band at the end of their contract so they can then renegotiate a better deal for themselves in future. Which is where the band then renegotiated the deal in 2011 with Warner Brothers, and we saw some very, very interesting things that happened. Now, there's 3 other releases which I'm going to mention. The first one is Stardeath and the White Dwarfs. This is their CD single, New Heat. And on the B-side, it has Borderline, a cover version of Madonna by the Flaming Lips with Stardeath and the White Dwarfs. The White Dwarfs, by the way, I think one of their members is Wayne Coyne's cousin. Because CD singles are quite rare and difficult to get hold of, when the case cracked, I didn't have a spare I could slot it into. But this was a single from Stardeath with Borderline on the B-side. There was also an album by Stardeath and the White Dwarfs. Now, this came out in 2009. I suspect because Warners were looking at it and going, do you think we could get another Flaming Lips? That guy's his cousin. Maybe that could work. Well, as you know from the Unbelievable Truth and Radiohead, that sometimes getting the guy's brother, cousin, or somebody in isn't always going to work. And this, whilst it looks like a Flaming Lips album and is produced in a way that sounds like it could possibly be one, and so I think it was recorded in the same studios, the songwriting and the production just isn't quite it. And so I'm listening to this and I'm kind of going, well, I'd like it to be as good as the Flaming Lips, and it isn't. Stuck it back on my shelf and didn't really revisit it. The last release of this period, now this is an unusual one, Danger Mouse and Sparkle Horse present The Dark Night of the Soul. There was a period in the early 10s when bands would, do guest vocals on things, and then all of a sudden you'd have like an album with 12 different guest vocalists. Soul Savers did it. Not David Lynch, somebody else did it as well. And this here, Dark Night of the Soul. And this features Revenge, written by Danger Mouse, Mark Linkous, and the Flaming Lips, which is quite good. Not amazing, worth listening to, but a secret hidden weapon inside the Flaming Lips arsenal of work. So that is me trying to be nice about a re-recording and a reimagining of Dark Side of the Moon. There is, of course, no dark side. It's all dark, isn't it? Which makes you think, if there was ever an album that should have been on black vinyl, it probably should have been Dark Side of the Moon. But I've got the Pink Floyd version for that. That wraps up a whistle-stop tour of the Flaming Lips, of their 2009 album. They're still their highest charting commercial success in the US. The double album of Weird is Embryonic, and Dark Side of the Moon that came out 2 months later. It was a pretty exciting time to be a fan of the Flaming Lips. There was also a time when you kind of thought, this band are going to do whatever the hell they want to do, and they don't really care what anybody else thinks they're going to do it. And I really, really respect that. I think, as I said before, about artists and insincerity, is that if an artist is sincere, they can overcome almost everything. Even if they are making an album that is not particularly good, I'm looking at you, Roger, if they believe in it and it's a true and representative kind of expression of their creative and artistic identity at that point in time, I'm willing to cut it a little bit of slack. I don't have to like it, but I have to respect it. And when an artist starts to be insincere, starts to do singles where you kind of think you're clearly trying to sound like the first song off the last album so you can sell more copies, or you're bringing in external songwriters and just going, we'll have that. But hey, you, what's his name? Max something or other, the Swedish guy. Max, write a song that sounds like our band. And then he writes a song that sounds like that band. And you end up kind of going, that sounds like him, doesn't it? But he's trying to be someone else. And it's kind of like watching a kid walking around wearing your dad's shoes, pretending to be grown up. And you kind of go, nah, you're not fooling anybody really, are you? And so there we are. So Embryonic, really good, kind of weird, classic double album. Everything at the kitchen wall, most of it stuck. Some really great stuff in here, some not so great stuff in there as well. And Dark Side of the Moon, I think is pretty good. It's the best of the reimaginings and the re-recordings and the reduxes of Dark Side of the Moon that I've heard. I really like it. And I'm a huge fan of Henry Rollins. That man has integrity flying out of every bodily orifice he's got. You may not like what he does, but you know damn well he does it because he believes it. And that matters more than anything else. I really, really think. And I really, really believe that this version of Dark Side of the Moon is much better than the version by that guy that used to be in Pink Floyd. So, let's not argue. Let's not fight. Be lovely in the comments. I am writing down names and putting it in a big black book if you're not. And I'll see you sometime soon. Thanks for watching if you made it all the way to the end. There is no fantastic joke. You don't get like no special gifts or anything. Just thanks for making it. And hopefully, if you're watching this whilst you're doing the housework, washing up or something like that, hopefully I made that go a little bit easier. And you may have found an album that you want to go, oh, I haven't thought about that for a while. I want to listen to it. So if you're listening to Embryonic in the future and you think it's awful, don't say I didn't warn you. If you're listening to it and you're thinking, oh, it's quite good, I did kind of tell you it was kind of good as well, but don't listen to me. Opinions are your own. You can have your own opinions about things. We don't have to agree on everything. But if we can agree on enough, we can be the change that we want to see in the world. I think Bono said that. Can't remember which gig. Most of them, I suspect. Right. I'll don't make my excuses like a Sun reporter and leave. See you later. Bye.